Okay, so I'm going to make this one relatively brief because I have a number of videos in the queue and it's taken up a lot of space. So I'll try and make this brief. I've just watched a video from Rebel Media. Rebel Media I'm not so familiar with. I know it's right wing, I know it's allegedly got some connections to the alt right, but I base things on my own perception and how I see them. So anyway, in this video, Lauren Southern, who's a Canadian libertarian activist, is interviewing some protesters at a transgender event at the University of Toronto. The context is a protest against Professor Jordan Peterson, who gained criticism for his position that there are only two genders, that his refusal, I should say, to use pronouns preferred by transgender people. He's received a barrage of basically hate from people who believe that safe spaces are more important than freedom of expression. Um, anyway, in this clip, Lauren Southern is trying to just interview the protesters, just garner what it's all about. And what is notable about it is that these people, rather than just answering questions and rather than just engaging, they take issue with the fact that she also interviews white cisgender males. So, in one video, they show their total intolerance. To me, it just sums up the regressive left: idiotic, intolerant, petty, and pathetic. Um, just a bunch of nasty little fascists. That's how I see it. Not because they're transgender, but because of their attitude of trying to shout down. Not, I was going to say people with a different opinion. It isn't even people with a different opinion. Because some of these white cis males might well agree with some of the things that they're saying. There was one young guy, and they tried to shout down the interview with him simply because he was a white male. And yet he even said he didn't agree with all of Professor Peterson's positions. That's how crazy their argument is. And what they were saying is that because it's about transgender people, that their voice has to be heard. But when Lauren Southern tried to interview them, they they wanted to mold it their way, and they actually tried blocking her camera and stuff. It's bullshit. Now, some people have said that the video's edited; it only shows one side. From what I could see, Lauren Southern was being very reasonable. I don't know much about her, but I'm going on this video, and I don't think she was being provocative. I think she was simply asking questions. If there is another side, I'd like to see it. If it's a case that a bunch of cisgender people came in and tried to bully these transgender protesters. What I saw was the transgender protesters trying to silence free expression, trying to shout down anyone that didn't agree with them, like a bunch of bullies. You can't play the victim when you're behaving that way. So, for example, one um, sociologist, she called herself, I believe, or social worker, that was it, made the point that transgender people are murdered. Well, that is a real problem. And she was saying this to this young Pakistani guy, but he wasn't being intolerant. He was actually saying, I want to learn more. And instead of engaging with him in a civil way, she actually started getting aggressive and shouting at Lauren Southern and trying to block the camera. The regressive left are just fucking pathetic. All this does is make me sympathize more with Professor Peterson because it just shows what he's up against. So my message to transgender people is by all means raise your voice, by all means debate with people and protest, that's your democratic right. But the second you say that other people can't have an opinion and that you use this notion of a safe space to try and bully other people into silence, you lose the argument, as far as I'm concerned. So I'm pretty disgusted, to be quite honest. I'm not surprised. This is the way the regressive left behave. And I say regressive left because it comes from a point of control. They actually have a lot more in common with fascism than they think. And it really is pathetic. As for Rebel Media and Lauren Southern, like I said, I don't know a great deal. I'm only going on what I've seen by this. I'm not saying I totally sympathize with them or agree with all their videos or anything like that. But, this is the second video now I've seen where you have a reporter from Rebel Media asking reasonable questions. seemingly not being provocative, just asking neutral questions and getting rounded on. Now, people say that's alt right. I'm not a big fan of the alt right. I certainly think they have a certain blood and soil nationalist tendency. So I'm not a fan of the alt right. But what I've just seen is nonsense. Even if it is edited, um, it doesn't take away the fact that there are clearly intolerant people in the left who just they play the victim whilst practicing total hypocrisy. And it's, well, I'll put a link to it. You can judge for yourself.